What's the first thing that comes to mind when you hear the word creepypasta? For many of you, it probably stirs up a wave of nostalgia, while others might not even know what I'm talking about, though honestly, I'd be surprised. Long before analog horror took over the internet, creepypastas were the ultimate form of online terror. Haunting stories that spread from forum to forum, cursed images, and impossible chronicles that sparked the imagination of millions. They didn't need a budget, just a good idea and the complicity of those reading them late at night with the lights off. Stories like Smile Dog, Tails Doll, Ben Drowned, Zalgo, or even the Russian sleep experiment were among the most famous, only topped by two icons that reached massive popularity: the undisputed king of creepypastas, Slender Man, followed closely by Jeff the Killer. But like all things that begin, it must eventually come to an end. Over time, these internet legends slowly faded into obscurity, buried somewhere in our collective memory. Yet not all hope is lost. These stories now have a chance to be reborn. That's exactly the premise behind the channel of my good friend Kris Archives, who, through the lens of analog horror, has brought our favorite smiling murderer back to life in a 4-part series. Episodes 1 and 3 serve as faithful adaptations of the original creepypasta, though with a few creative liberties, while episode 2 takes on a style that perfectly captures the essence of the analog horror genre we all love. And finally, the grand finale completely reimagines Jeff the Killer versus Jane the Killer. Today, the inner child in many of us is smiling again. That said, I want to take a moment to thank everyone who responded to the pinned comment in the last video and for the incredible support you always give me. Remember, if you'd like to be featured in the next video, make sure to reply to the pinned comment where you'll find this question. What's your favorite creepypasta? Without further ado, don't forget to leave your precious like and subscribe to help the channel grow and reach more people. Every like is one more coin to escape poverty. If you're unsure what to comment, just type meow in the comments section and I'll give you a heart in return. Comments are incredibly important and help the video a lot, so don't forget to leave yours. Welcome to the Jeff the Killer analog horror series. Everything begins with a silence that promises nothing good. What we're about to see is a confidential police file recovered on October 13th, 2007, a 911 call. On the other end of the line, a young woman struggles to keep her voice steady as she speaks to an officer. Her tone trembles, not because of a present emergency, but because of something that happened weeks before. She says she survived, that she saw the killer everyone's been talking about on the news, that she saw him with her own eyes. The girl explains that on that night, she woke up in a panic from a nightmare. The window was open, even though she remembered closing it before going to bed. A small detail, but enough for her instincts to start screaming that something was wrong. She went back to bed, trying to convince herself it was nothing. But in the darkness, she felt it. Someone was watching her. Her words grow faster, more desperate, as she describes what she saw next. A pair of eyes, pitch black and sunken into the shadows, and an impossible smile so wide it barely looked human. She swears the killer stared at her in silence for several eternal seconds before speaking. He said just one thing.
He said, "Go to Jesus."
At that very moment, the call begins to distort. Her voice cuts off mid-sentence, while the screen reveals a grotesque and blood-soaked version of the girl. Her eyes torn out, her cheeks slit open along with her throat, and looming over her, a dark figure. The officer desperately tries to keep the connection alive as the girl continues her account. She says the killer lunged at her with a knife, that she fought back, and that her father rushed into the room to defend her. Eventually, the killer had no choice but to flee when he heard police sirens approaching. Neighbors and officers later confirmed seeing him escaping across the rooftops. That was the night when his face was burned into her memory forever. But just as she's about to continue, something happens. From the other end of the line, there's an unmistakable sound. Panic takes over her voice. He's inside the house again. The officer orders her to hide, to lock the door, to stay on the line. And then, the call drops. What we see next is a recording from inside the girl's room. She's hiding inside a closet, praying the intruder won't find her. After this tragic ending, a new call takes place. The same officer, deeply alarmed, asks what happened and if she's still there. But all he hears on the other end is slow, heavy breathing, followed by a maniacal, deranged laugh that makes him lose all composure. Finally, the psychopathic killer hangs up and the police file ends. Moments later, the scene changes. We switch to footage from a patrol car's dash cam driving through the night toward the crime scene. Behind the wheel is the same officer who spoke with the girl, now identified as John. During the drive, he communicates by radio with his colleagues already on site. The tension in his voice is palpable, and the news he receives is grim. Inside the house, they found the bodies of the girl and her father, both mutilated beyond description. The killer escaped long before they arrived, leaving no trace behind. As Officer John tries to process what happened, something darts across the road and disappears into the forest. A human figure, impossible to distinguish in the darkness to anyone else, but years of service have sharpened his instincts. He knows exactly who just crossed his path. He slams the brakes, steps out of the vehicle, and walks into the woods with his gun drawn, calling for backup. For a brief moment, a spark of hope flickers inside him. Maybe, at last, he'll catch the murderer who's haunted the place for so long. What he doesn't know is that he's already stepped straight into the wolf's den.
Freeze! Police! Drop the weapon and put your hands behind your head!
You found me, officer. I'm impressed.
What the fuck? What are you? God damn it, drop the fucking knife, now!
You wanted it. Go take it. The girl called you because she thought you could save her. Cute.
Shut the fuck up! Fuck!
Go to sleep.
In the end, Jeff claims another life, but his crimes will not go unpunished. Because a vengeful soul, one that many of you may already recognize, is following close behind. Even so, this nightmare has only just begun. The next thing we see is an official statement from the National Emergency Alert System, dated October 14th, 2007. An extremely dangerous individual is reported to be active in the area, unofficially identified as Jeffrey Woods, better known as Jeff the Killer. He's described as a pale, burnt-skinned man with sunken eyes and a permanent, carved-in smile. His victims are always found with deep lacerations, missing eyes, and severe facial mutilations, all under eerily similar circumstances. As examples, the report shows the bodies of the girl and the police officer from the previous episode. Authorities warn citizens not to approach him, not to speak to him, and to avoid making eye contact at all costs. They advise keeping doors and windows locked before nightfall, staying indoors after 9 p.m., and above all, not answering the door if you're not expecting anyone. If it's already too late, find a safe place and call 911 immediately. With each new instruction, the atmosphere grows heavier, more suffocating. The message, though purely technical, carries an overwhelming sense of helplessness, and just when the announcer is about to deliver the final warning, The transmission cuts off abruptly, replaced by a woman's voice breaking through the static.
Go to sleep. You won't wake up.
Her words are unmistakable. The woman speaking is Jane Arkansas, one of Jeff's many victims, or rather, one of the few who actually survived. She's the same woman we saw at the end of the previous episode, though we'll dive into her story later on. The episode then closes with a shot of an apparently abandoned house deep in the woods, accompanied by a binary code that, when translated, reads, "I don't care if I die, I'll take you with me." And if we add the other two binary codes that appear throughout the episode, it becomes clear that these messages come from Jane herself. Declarations of pure hatred and vengeance aimed directly at Jeff. Words that seal a personal war between victim and killer. How much pain can one person inflict on everyone around them? Are monsters like this born or made? To find the answer, we have to go back to the very beginning, the event that started it all, the Woods family tragedy. We set the scene around September 1997. The Woods family had just moved into a new neighborhood, the kind of place that looked perfect on the surface. Tidy streets, neatly trimmed lawns, smiling neighbors. Jeff's father had gotten a promotion, and with it, a dream home, or at least that's what he believed. For Jeff and his brother Lou, however, it felt like a change forced upon them. They were definitely not on board. While unpacking, a woman came over to introduce herself. Barbara, their new neighbor, accompanied by her son, Billy. She spoke with an exaggerated cheerfulness and immediately invited them to Billy's birthday party that Saturday, insisting it would be fun. Margaret, Jeff's mother, accepted enthusiastically, but Jeff didn't share her excitement. As soon as Barbara left, he complained. He didn't see why he should go to a kid's party when he was no longer a child. He tried to argue, but he stopped himself. He knew there was nothing he could do. Whenever his mother decided something, it was final. And once again, Jeff felt that familiar sensation. The feeling of having no voice, of having no choice. He didn't know it yet, but that frustration would be the first spark of something much darker beginning to take root inside him. That night, when everyone else was asleep, Jeff locked himself in his room and fell onto his bed. That's when he felt it for the first time. A strange sensation, like a stab in his chest. It wasn't exactly pain, so he tried to ignore it and eventually fell asleep, convincing himself it was stress or simple fatigue. The next morning, while he ate breakfast before heading off to his new school, the feeling came back. This time it was stronger, clearer. Still, he tried to dismiss it. Maybe it was just from the upheaval of the previous day, or the nerves that come with starting somewhere new, he thought. A few minutes later, Jeff and his brother were on their way to the bus stop. Everything seemed normal, until 3 teenagers on skateboards showed up and blocked their path. They were Troy, Keith, and their leader Randy, who spoke with that arrogant tone of someone who thinks he owns the world. Randy was a bully who made everyone pay a small cash toll or hand over their breakfast to avoid getting beaten up. Lou refused flat out and answered angrily, but that only made things worse. At that moment, Jeff's heart began to pound. His breathing quickened. The earlier sensation returned, but now it became unbearable. And then that steady prick in his chest erupted into a wave of heat and fury. The frustration and powerlessness he was feeling in that instant, plus all the resentment he'd been carrying for so long, were the fuel that fed his inner monster. Randy barely had time to laugh before Jeff lunged at them. What followed was pure, explosive violence. None of the 3 had a chance to defend themselves. They were beaten mercilessly and left trembling. Jeff didn't think. He didn't reason. He just acted, driven by an impulse that felt to him, in that moment, as terrifying as it was liberating. Lou, horrified, could hardly recognize his own brother. Jeff felt pleasure. He reveled in the dark thrill of feeling powerful, superior. He felt the exhilaration of finally being able to choose, to decide what to do and what not to do. If not for the sound of a car approaching, he might have ended their lives. At school, the event had such an impact on both brothers that they didn't speak about it for the rest of the day. Still, the residue it left them with was radically different. During class, Jeff struggled to breathe, sweating. He had enjoyed it, and that realization frightened him most, because deep down, he knew he shouldn't feel that way, but the sensation was eating him alive. They returned home in silence. The tension was unbearable, and a few hours later, 2 police officers knocked on the door asking for them. Jeff hurried down from the 2nd floor and was met by a scene that stunned him. What struck him most wasn't that 2 officers were in the living room, but the expression of disappointment on his mother's face, an expression he hadn't seen in some time. The officers had received reports of a fight, and witnesses said they'd seen them beat up 3 boys and then run. Cornered, Jeff admitted he'd hit them but insisted it had been the others who started it. The officers were surprised by the young man's statements and proceeded to detain him. However, at that exact moment, Liu came downstairs holding a knife. The officers drew their guns and shouted for him to drop it, and he did. Then he lifted his shirt to reveal a huge bruise on his abdomen and explained that he had been the one who stood up to those guys. Jeff had only been trying to protect him. The officers exchanged looks. There wasn't much more to argue after hearing his version. Liu was arrested, and Jeff could do nothing to stop it. Watching him leave under his parents' cold gaze, especially his mother's, was another drop in an already overflowing cup. Once again, Jeff had no choice. Days passed, and one morning his mother came into his room and woke him up with false cheer, as if nothing had happened. A forced smile painted her face as she announced they had to go to Billy's birthday. Naturally, Jeff tried to refuse, especially after everything that had occurred. But again, the decision had already been made. When they arrived, Barbara greeted them as warm as ever. The kids were playing in the yard, dressed as cowboys, running and laughing with plastic guns, and she insisted Jeff join them. At first he resisted. He felt awkward, out of place, but a child handed him a toy gun and a hat, and after being begged, he finally agreed. At first he thought it was ridiculous, but then he began to have fun. It might not have been amazing, but it was the first thing that managed to push Liu out of his mind. For a few moments he forgot the weight pressing inside him, yet that fleeting peace vanished in an instant. Randy, Troy, and Keith had returned. The hate on their faces was unmistakable. They'd come to gloat over how things had ended before, how Liu had been arrested instead of them, but mostly they'd come for revenge, this time intent on causing real harm. Families screamed. Chaos took over the yard, until finally everything went black.
What's so damn funny?
So you want to know what's so funny, huh? You're soaked in alcohol and bleach.
Weeks later, Jeff wakes up in a hospital with his face bandaged. To him, everything had happened in seconds. He remembers how the fire consumed him and then everything went dark. They rushed him to the hospital as fast as they could, and somehow they managed to save his life. Thanks to what happened, the earlier fight was clarified and Liu was released. And here's where one of the most interesting additions in this adaptation of Jeff the Killer comes in. But first, I want to be clear about one thing. Although this creepypasta was one of my childhood favorites, I'm not its biggest defender. The original creepypasta and many stories featuring Jeff the Killer are full of mistakes, contradictions, and things that simply don't make sense. I won't highlight them here because I don't want to pull you out of the immersion and tone we've been building throughout the video, but I think what I just said is well known to most of you. And this isn't Kris's fault at all. As I mentioned, this adaptation tries to be faithful and respectful of the original material as much as possible, with its pros and cons. Anyway, as I was saying, here we see a pretty interesting addition that helps explain Jeff's motives for what he'll do later. From Jeff's thoughts, we learn that one day his mother came to visit and began to cry. Not because of his condition, but because of the image their family might project to the rest of the neighborhood after what had happened. She said it was all his fault and that she wished with all her heart he had been burned to death. Jeff, though in a coma, heard every word she said. With that in mind, I think it's vital to pause for a moment and dig deeper into how and why Jeff descended into madness. Let's start with his mother. In this adaptation, Margaret Woods is presented as the archetype of the perfectionist mother obsessed with appearances. What to others might be a home, for her is a display window. And within that display, her children and husband are decorative objects that must reflect an ideal of a perfect family. In fact, I'm sure the idea to move into a dream house was hers. All of this is well reflected when she decides to go to Billy's party, especially after everything that had occurred. Another mother wouldn't have shown up. She wouldn't have had the strength or desire. But Margaret is different. She doesn't go out of courtesy, nor because she thinks Jeff needs a distraction. She goes because she fears what the neighbors will think if they don't show. It's the classic manifestation of a socially oriented narcissism where image is everything. Margaret suffers a kind of moral dissociation, unable to emotionally connect with her own when it threatens her reputation. We see this firsthand in the words she directs at Jeff while he's in a coma. Her coldness acts as the final trigger of Jeff's mental collapse. Her words strip him of the last human tie that kept him anchored to sanity. Jeff, from the beginning, lacked an emotionally safe environment. He lives in a family structure where appearances weigh more than anything else. His mother gives orders without listening, and his father is passive. That lack of recognition generates an affective void, a sense of invisibility and loss of control that translates into an unconscious need to assert himself, to test his own power. Then the attack by Randy, Troy, and Keith functions as the breaking point. When he fights back, something ignites within him, the pleasure of acting without restraint. For the first time, he feels power, and that feeling, in an emotionally repressed individual, is addictive. When Lou is arrested, Jeff understands the world isn't fair. The absence of external justice will push him in the future to seek his own justice, and that justice will be corrupted. And as we've noted, his mother's visit is the final nail. From there, Jeff falls into a bottomless pit of madness he will never climb out of. Here is where the psychopathic killer we all know is born. Someone who, in his madness, carved a smile into his face because he could no longer smile without pain. Someone who mutilated his own eyelids so he could stare at the world forever. Someone who kills simply for the pleasure of feeling powerful, because the act restores his sense of choice, power over life and death. Someone who destroys other lives as his own was destroyed. Someone capable of destroying his family without a second thought.
What's that noise?
Oh my god. Jeff? What are you doing?
I couldn't smile anymore, Mom. It hurt, so I fixed it.
Your eyes! What did you do to your eyes?
They kept closing. I couldn't see the movie, so I burned off the lids. Now I can always watch the smile. What's wrong, Mom? Don't you think I'm beautiful?
You're beautiful, sweetheart. Let me just go get your father. He needs to see how handsome you are. Honey, wake up! Get the gun!
Finally, guided by his sick mind, Jeff concludes he cannot allow this unjust world to let Lou suffer as he did. And so, after apologizing, he ends the life of the only person he truly loved.
Now, go to sleep.
And so we reach the final stretch of this series, not before, as I promised, briefly delving into Jane's story, since she will play a leading role in the last episode. Her creepypasta is rather extensive, so we'll omit most of it, but don't worry, the episode description will be enough for our purposes. Report: September 28th, 1997, at approximately 2:34 a.m. The bodies of the Woods family were discovered at their residence, all showing signs of extreme and brutal violence. The victims have been identified as Margaret Woods, Peter Woods, and Lou Woods, with evidence suggesting the attack occurred during the night. Jeffrey Woods, the family's teenage son, was not found at the scene. His current whereabouts remain unknown. At this time, he is considered a person of interest and a potential suspect in the case. In a related incident, Jane, Arkansas, a teenage girl from a nearby neighborhood, was found severely burned inside her home. Emergency responders arrived to a disturbing scene. The bodies of her parents and several of her friends were discovered seated at the dining room table, all deceased under unexplained circumstances. Jane is currently in critical condition and receiving intensive medical care. Authorities continue to investigate both incidents and are urging anyone with relevant information to contact law enforcement immediately. Since that fateful day, Jane swore revenge, and every time the sun goes down, she goes out searching for Jeff, to find him and kill him. We finally arrive at Halloween night, 2007, a night when 4 teenagers, driven by rumors, morbid curiosity, and the promise of something terrifying, decide to explore an old abandoned house deep in the woods, a place shrouded in urban legends, despite repeated warnings from local authorities not to go out after dark. A house we've actually seen before, the same one that appeared at the end of the second episode. The group is made up of the usual thrill seekers, a generation raised on internet myths and viral dares. Ashley is the sensible one, though she hides her caution behind layers of sarcasm. Sophie is quieter, but easily the most empathetic of the 4. Noah, apparently Ashley's boyfriend, is the cocky, playful type who breaks the rules purely for fun, or just to see if anyone dares stop him. And then there's Liam, the geek of the group, the one who organized this little adventure after becoming obsessed with the ruthless killer said to be prowling the area. He even brought his camera along, hoping to capture a photo of the murderer if they happened to cross paths. Ashley mocks the plan, calling it brilliant with heavy irony. No signal, freezing cold, the middle of the woods, and a serial killer on the loose. The others laugh it off. It's Halloween after all. They're chasing that rush, that fleeting sense of danger, but Ashley wants no part of it. Just as they're about to step through the doorway, she decides to stay outside for a smoke. She's not setting foot in that damn house. She lights her cigarette and watches as her friends disappear beyond the door. She doesn't know it yet, but this will be the last time they ever see each other alive. From that moment on, one by one, the teenagers are brutally slaughtered by the very monster one of them had been so desperate to find. All of them, except Sophie, who, before crossing paths with Jeff, is saved by a mysterious woman.
Don't even think about making a sound. If you want to live, get out of here and run as far as you can. Your friends are already dead. You can't do anything for them.
Who are you? Why are you?
That's none of your business, girl. If you don't do exactly as I say, I'll kill you right here. Run!
Look who we have here. You never get tired, huh, Jane?
Shut the fuck up! You think this is a game? After everything you did? After what you did to them? Innocent people.
Innocent. There are no innocents. Everyone burns inside. Everyone carries the rot that I'm the only one who brings out. Look at me. Really look at me. Fear, despair, death. That's all there is. And today, you, me, everyone, we're going to dance in the depths of hell.
You stole everything from me! My parents! My friends! You made me watch! You made me listen! And then you ripped away what was left. My soul, my future, everything I could have been. All of it gone because of you. But none of that matters now.
I'll make you scream. I'll make you suffer in ways you didn't think were possible. And when you finally beg me to end it, I'll kill you with my own hands.
Jeff lunges at Jane with his knife. She barely dodges, striking him across the head with the butt of her gun and knocking him unconscious. Taking advantage of the moment, she ties him to a chair and finally unleashes years of bottled-up rage, torturing him slowly, determined to make him pay for everything he's done to her and so many others. But Jane lets her vengeance linger too long, and just as she's about to finish him off, dousing him with alcohol, ready to set him ablaze, police sirens wail in the distance, breaking her focus for only a second Jeff uses to free himself and attack again. But against all odds, Sophie returns to repay the favor. She throws a lit lighter at Jeff, engulfing him in flames. Fire consumes him completely, forcing him to relive the hell he already knew years ago. Yet the nightmare isn't over. As the two girls stagger toward the exit, a manic laugh echoes behind them. It's Jeff, still burning, still conscious, refusing to die. He can't allow them to leave alive.
Where do you think you're going? I'll tear your damn heart out and rip your throat wide open.
What? Wait!
That's right, Jane. Play with me a little more.
Can you see the pain? Everything you've lost? What you've done to yourself? Do you feel what I felt, Jeff? This is what you have done to everyone. This is the monster your madness turned you into. If only you had died burned alive that time.
For a moment, Jeff freezes. Jane's last words strike something deep inside his mind, the same words he once heard from his mother years ago. And in that instant, Jane stops being just another enemy. She becomes the embodiment of everyone he's ever hated. Driven by fury, Jeff lunges at her one last time with every ounce of strength he has left. But this time, he doesn't reach her. He collapses to the ground. The root of the nightmare begins to fade, little by little, under the silent gaze of the tormented spirits of his family, watching in silence. The Daily Observer, November 1st, 2007. 3 teens found brutally murdered in abandoned house, only survivor in shock. Jeffrey Woods, also known as Jeff the Killer, found dead at the scene. Killer unknown. The bodies of 3 teenagers, Noah Carter, Ashley Morris, and Liam Hayes, were discovered early this morning inside an abandoned property. The only survivor, Sophie Williams, was found unharmed but placed in deep psychological shock, refusing to speak about the events of the night. Authorities confirmed that the charred remains of Jeffrey Woods, known as the infamous figure Jeff the Killer, were also found in the basement of the residence. The body exhibited extensive blood loss, multiple fatal wounds, and signs of mutilation, including the removal of one eye. This wasn't just a random act of violence, said Sheriff Mendez. There's something much darker behind this. Near the body, investigators recovered a white shattered mask, a dark wig, and a blood-stained rope, raising suspicions of a possible prolonged torture before death. The tools or weapons used remain missing, and the presence of these items has led officials to speculate about the involvement of a 6th unidentified person who may have been inside the house during the time of the killings. The incident occurred during the night of Halloween, a detail that has intensified public fascination and fear surrounding the case. Everything seems to be over. In the final scene, we see Sophie in her bedroom, struggling to fall asleep, trying to forget everything that happened that night, though deep down she knows she never will. But she's not alone. In the shadows of her room stands an uninvited guest, his body burned beyond recognition, back to finish what he started. So, what do you think? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I love reading them. If you want more videos like this, don't forget to support this one as much as possible and share it with as many people as you can. Also, make sure to follow me on my other social media platforms, where I post exclusive content you won't find here on YouTube. And most importantly, a massive shout out to the channel members. Seriously, thank you all so much. If you'd like to become a member, just click the join button next to the subscribe button to unlock tons of perks and exclusive emojis while supporting me. If you're interested, join in. I'll be forever grateful. And last but definitely not least, a special thank you to Kabulo02 for your donation. Truly, from the bottom of my heart, thank you. And remember, this video was made by a cat, and cats can't talk. Thanks for watching, take care, and see you soon.